Welcome to Brew Day at R4 Brewery. We're brewing the Flightschool Framboise today. It's a fruited raspberry Lambic Framboise. We've already gone ahead and doughed in and mashed in at 148 degrees with approximately 3 gallons of water in our mash tun here. We're going to let that rest and mash out for about 75 minutes. We're going to go ahead and mash out of that with 208 degree water. Again, about 2 gallons of water, almost 8 quarts, and let that sit for 10 minutes. And right now we're waiting on the water to warm up for our fly sparge. We'll fly sparge out and collect our runnings at approximately 168 degrees. More to follow. Well, welcome back to the Flightschool Framboise. We've just completed our mash out at 168 in our mash tun, and we're ready to start the Vorlauf procedure. To do a Vorlauf, we're going to use a sanitary collection container, very similar to a glass Pyrex, or you can use stainless steel, anything that works well for you. What we're going to do with this, we're going to place this down here. We're going to collect our first runnings and ensure that our mash is running clear. So we're going to very carefully remove the mash and start running off just a little bit to collect maybe anywhere from 1 liter to 2 liters worth of liquid. You can see right now there's some grains in there. We're going to try and clean up that grain bed, and then before we do our sparge. Welcome back to the Flightschool Framboise Lambic brewing session. We've just finished Vorlaufing, which has taken probably about 2 gallons worth of recirculation with a Pyrex container, and put it gently back into the top of the mash tun as to not disturb the grain bed. We're now doing our runnings and our sparge into our boil kettle. As you can see down in the bottom of the boil kettle, we have set the boil kettle to start to drain very, very slowly. The key to doing fly sparging is patience, and number 2, setting your sparge water runoff to the same speed at which you are draining from the mash tun. That way you don't upset your grain bed and you're not over sparging or over collecting at the same time. Our sparge water is at 168 degrees. Our wort is running nice and clear right now. We'll check back with the next step for the Flightschool Framboise. Well, just a quick update. We've got our sparge water heated to 168 degrees. About 3 gallons of sparge water for this recipe. We've already gone ahead and done our mash out and completed our mash at 168 degrees. And at this time we're trickling our sparge water into the top of our mash tun at the same rate that we are draining our sweet wort into our boil kettle. We'll collect approximately 6.2 gallons and start to boil. Well, we finished collecting all of our runnings for our wort and we've started to boil. We've collected approximately 6.2 gallons. And we are waiting for the boil at this time, where we're going to add 0.75 ounces or 3/4 ounces of Styrian Goldings hops that have been laid out for a day or two as to dry up. All we want to get out of this is the preservative in the beer, not necessarily the hop bitterness for the Framboise. We'll check back for our first edition of our hop. Well, welcome back to our Flightschool Framboise brewing session. All grain, 5-gallon batch. We've collected all of our wort runnings, came out with an initial pre-boil gravity of about 1.043, which is right on target, and a pH just a little under 6. So we're right on target for our pre-boil volumes. We've collected 6.2 gallons of runnings, and that was right at our pH level. That should account for our boil off and our loss in fermenter, bring us down to a true 5-gallon batch. Always be careful when you're boiling full gallon batches if you're using a pot that may be close to your maximum boil level, as to keep a close eye on it. Boil level of this size, when you only have half a gallon or a gallon to spare on top of the kettle, can boil over real easily. So I make sure and use my thermometer in the boil so I can get an idea of how close we're getting to actual boil temperatures. At sea level and our elevation here, the water boils at about 208 to 210 degrees, just a little above sea level today. We'll check back as we do our first hop additions into our Flightschool Framboise all-grain lambic recipe. Well, here's our Flightschool Framboise. It begins to chill. This is one of the chilling processes that I use for 5 gallons of beer. I'll go ahead and put the whole entire kettle into my sink, and I'll add just a little bit of ice and some water to start the initial break so I don't waste all my ice. But as I do that, I'll use an extra auto siphon to begin to pull the warm water around the outside of the beer kettle away from the beer kettle and slowly replace it with more ice and cold water so that the temperature will drop. Make sure at this stage that you're not aerating your wort. If you do want to stir around the edges, that helps a little bit of the temperature stick on the outside walls, if just by gently stirring your wort so that more contact with the wort and the cool water can happen. But you want to get this down as fast as you can to pitching temperatures. For today, we're going to try and get it down to about 70 degrees.